Coming up on FTC Recap, Team 5064 Aperture Science joins the show as we go through the latest headlines and have a discussion about their design process. We're going to end the show with some fun Kahoot. All this and more coming up on FTC Recap.
Giving you a voice.
Making it loud our own way.
Welcome to the fun.
We want to give a big shout out to the members of Fun Nation who help First Updates Now stay loud, live, and independent. Click the join button, and for just a few bucks a month, you can unlock perks and help support Fun make great content. If you're on an FRC or FTC team and you're currently meeting safely in person and have a functional robot, we'd love to have you on our Behind the Bots or Behind the Bumper segments. Go ahead and reach out to us on any of our social channels, on Discord, or send us an email at admin@firstupdatesnow.com, and let's get your team scheduled to be on First Updates Now.
Welcome to FTC Recap, where you get the breakdown and discussion of what's going on in the FTC community. From First Updates Now, I'm Ishan. Joining me is Kate.
Joining us on the show today are Timothy and Safi from Team 5064 Aperture Science. They held the world record for ultimate goal earlier this season and had an incredibly optimized robot. Their team ranked first in the March FTC Top 25, and if you have any questions for them, make sure to tag First Updates Now in the chat.
Great. With that being said, let's get into our headlines. Applications for the Maryland Tech Invitational are open, and teams can apply to compete at the event. To apply, teams will submit one full remote match for their team. The event is supposed to take place in person, but could switch to being virtual depending on COVID guidelines. It's going to take place from July 30th till August 1st. Are any of your teams planning on applying for this? Kate?
Yeah, our team's planning on applying for it. We're kind of hoping we get in. Our team hasn't participated in the past, but we're looking forward to filling out that application soon.
Yeah, I believe we are too. We haven't actually talked about it yet, but I think it's definitely a possibility. I don't want to speak for the team before we talk about it though.
Yeah, so from what they said, they're going to try to do 2v2 matches, which would be awesome because we have no idea what the status of Worlds is going to be. And if they aren't able to do that, they will switch over to a remote match style similar to what they did last year, which is very similar to what they're running officially this year. So overall, it's super exciting news that they're still planning on having this and that the top teams will be able to compete again. Want to move on to the next one, Kate?
Yep, so Team 7303 Robo Avatars from Fremont, California posted a practice match with an overall score of 505 a few weeks ago. And even though this was just a practice match, not an official score, it was the first score we've seen over 500. And they utilized a few unique strategies in their tele-op, and the one that stood out to me the most was the sticks they used to stop the rings from rolling behind the robot. And this strategy really let their same-side design work to its best potential, with the rings being in the perfect place. Overall, this robot was really optimized, and it's really cool to see teams starting to score these high points.
Timothy, Safi, what did you think about seeing this?
I thought it was really interesting to see their little arms that came down and stopped the rings, and I wonder how they came up with that strategy.
Yeah, we've seen these arms happen on a lot of teams. So I think the pink team threw them on the robot, and they were shooting 45 rings in one match. And we saw a couple of other teams use these arms. I'm interested in seeing how refs are going to be able to keep track of possession of 3 rings, because technically a ring that you knock over with those arms counts as being possessed. And how do they differentiate rings that are just hitting the robot while it's shooting versus rings hitting those arms? So definitely something to look out for.
Yeah, I know they were telling teams to be careful, make sure you read the rules a lot before you implement the arms, because it's easy to get a lot of penalties with them if you don't drive right.
For sure.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a risk to get penalties, but it's just a super easy design change you can make. I'm sure it would take 10 minutes to assemble, and it seems to have greatly improved the performance of a lot of those same-side bots.
I'm interested to see how these arms work in person matches, right? The only place we've seen in-person matches is Russia, Georgia, and Chesapeake. And I don't think that these arms are going to make you that much better in an in-person match, but that's just from what I've seen from watching these in-person matches. They're awesome for remote, but we'll have to see how they affect in person. And whoever in the chat spells Styx, S-T-Y-X, amazing band. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's Boomer Music. Anyways,
Wonderful.
Moving on to the next headline. A controversial video was released by Team 8947 Tectonics. They seemed to build a really cool robot that picked up rings that were rolling from the return rack and shoot them out immediately, creating a closed recycling system. While this looks like this looks cool at first, there are many concerns with the legality of this. From the video, it looks like they have 2 human players, since 2 unique sets of hands can be seen handling rings behind the Heigl. They also have a custom fields which just posits rings at a less random fashion than the AndyMark fields. They also don't have numbers on the robot, and the wires on the robot could be illegal. Last time we saw a closed recycling strategy was Velocity Vortex, and within 2 weeks of the competition coming out, it was ruled illegal. What do you guys think of this robot? I know you all competed against them at the North Carolina State Championship, right? So I want to hear your hot takes.
I think it was a matter of time before rolling intakes happened. I think for a lot of top teams, including us, we were just definitely thinking about it if we made worlds. Brainstem obviously has a rolling ring intake, although they can do both. So I think it was just a matter of time before rolling ring intakes started popping up. As you can see, they got like a 56 ring teddy up in like 9 days, which is just ridiculous. I would be interested to see if it's ruled illegal. I really doubt they could do it at this point, but I do think that a lot of people will say it would make the game more fun if they didn't have rolling ring intakes.
Safi, what did you think?
I agree with Timothy on most of his points. I think it's kind of cool to look and see the rolling ring intake, and I would like to see more robots like this.
Yeah, Kate, I know you were not so happy about this. What did you think really stood out to you as not okay with this?
Well, I think myself and most teams in the FTC community were had a mixed combination, mixed feelings with the design overall, and most people were just frustrated that someone kind of figured out a design that was that good and could get that many rings with that little optimization and stuff. But it's still really cool to see the design out there and that someone kind of managed to break the game in a way. So that was cool to see. Some people are a little frustrated with the 2 human player and stuff like that, but the design was definitely a cool thing to see out there, to see someone get something scoring that high.
Hey guys, let me ask a question for somebody who maybe needs a little more explaining on this. Like, other than the 2 hands, what about this would be illegal, or what's not kosher with something like this?
Yeah, so one of the things is they build a custom field. So in a remote event, that's perfectly legal. So the fact that they have a remote field is legal. The thing that's a little suspicious is the return rack seems to return the rings in the same place every single time, or very similarly. And with a normal AndyMark return rack, you may not be getting that kind of performance, which could definitely give them a huge advantage over teams that are using an official field set. So technically that's legal, but I'm really interested to see if this is going to be a strategy going in person. All right, I just can't see this working out to be this successful in person, because you throw another robot right in front of it and all of a sudden you're shut down.
I will note, they have released pictures of their field. Their return rack is not custom. The field is, but they bought the actual AndyMark return rack. And I do think there's just a ton of variance within those return racks. So different teams are going to have different.
But they just got the one that was built correctly then, huh?
Yeah, they just got lucky, I think. But I think that robots exactly like that won't be as common in person, but I could see a brainstem style intake where you can intake vertical or horizontal. I think that's definitely going to happen. There will be some defense played, but even if you can just cycle like 10 rings rolling, that speeds up your cycle time so much that I think it's worth it to try in person.
Yeah, we'll have to see if this makes it into other robots. I know a lot of teams are going to try to rebuild coming into the rest of the season. All right, Kate, want to take away the next topic?
Yep. So recently, the team 7129 Robo Raiders released a teaser video for the robot. I thought I'd throw this in here was one of the headlines because they've had so many things that I haven't seen before. They have a really cool helical indexing mechanism that feeds in one ring at a time. They've just got a lead screw mechanism to angle their shooter, and they also use a 4-bar linkage to lift the wobble goal. Just overall, it's a really unique robot.
Yeah. Timothy, Safi, did you all get a chance to take a look at this? Or watching it now for the first time?
I have not seen this before yet. It looks very interesting.
This is my first time.
Yeah, I really thought turning the thing to lift up the rings just was so cool. It reminded me of all those like marble runs from when I was a child. And then also they just had some other cool stuff on their robot that thought was unique and deserved recognition. Really, really satisfying, as the chat is saying.
Yeah, I think it's really cool to see so many unique designs. Like, I think last year, well, obviously there is some variance in design. I think a lot of teams are really similar with their designs overall. But like this week alone, we've seen like Brainstorm is this robot, and Tectonics as three like super good robots that are all so unique.
I mean, you all had a really cool design last year with your scissor lift, and we can talk a little bit more about that later on the show, but definitely a lot of unique stuff coming out of your team. All right, the next headline is the Green Girls STEM Foundation has a scholarship opportunity for FRC and FTC teams. The winner of the scholarship will be awarded $1,000. Our producer Tyler spoke to Grace from the Green Girls STEM Foundation earlier today to learn more about the foundation and how you can apply. Let's take a look.
Thanks, Ashan. I'm here with Grace from the Green Girls STEM Foundation, and we're going to be talking about a scholarship or scholarships that they have to offer, and of course about what the Green Girls STEM Foundation is as well too. So, Grace, you used to be on an FTC team, so tell me a little bit about that and what you're doing with the Green Girls STEM Foundation now as an alumni.
Yes. Hi, Tyler. I was on Green Girls Robotics for 6 years, 4 years as an FTC team, and 2 more as an FLL team. Green Girls was an all-girls robotics team, and one thing that was really important to us was increasing diversity in FIRST Robotics and the STEM fields as well. So after high school, we all graduated. We still wanted to participate in some way, so we created a nonprofit, Green Girls STEM Foundation, to give scholarships to FIRST students who were trying to increase diversity in the STEM fields.
And you have 2 scholarships that are eligible right now. So tell me a little bit about the ones that we have here on screen. Looks like there's one for FIRST students and then one that's a little more open as well.
So the first one is FIRST Robotics centered. So the only people that can apply to that scholarship are those that have participated in either FLL, FIRST Tech Challenge, or FIRST Robotics competition. And that one, we're looking for applicants to talk about how they've increased diversity either in their community or in their FIRST Robotics community. And the second one is open to all applicants, but FIRST students can apply to both of them. So you have a little bit more chance at winning one.
So on these scholarships in particular, I guess what inspired you to want to provide these scholarships and maybe the Green Girls STEM Foundation in particular? Is there a mission or vision that's kind of established for that?
Yeah, our mission as an organization is just to fund diverse peoples in their pursuit of STEM careers or in FIRST Robotics. So we provide scholarships on a yearly basis, but we are also planning on providing grants to teams. In the past, we've provided travel grants to teams for Worlds. And yeah, we're hoping to do that more in the future. But what really motivated us is going through that experience of being an all-girls team in FIRST Robotics, and we just want to promote more teams and individuals that have the same missions and goals as us.
As an alumni, I think really specifically in FTC as well too. We do see a lot of students essentially take some time off after they've graduated as well too. What advice would you have to give to students who are maybe in their senior years right now or who have recently become alumni in regards to staying involved in the program?
I would say take the time off if you want it, but I did the same thing and I came back only a few months later because I missed it so much. So take the time off, but you're definitely going to miss it. And when you come back, please stay involved because it's such an awesome community. And I just love seeing all of the kids involved in the bright happiness on their faces when they are at these competitions.
Where can people find more about the Green Girls STEM Foundation? What's your website and where can they apply on there as well?
You can apply on our website, which is www.ggstemfoundation.com. And you can also follow us on our social medias. We have a Twitter, Facebook, YouTube account. So, and we have a TikTok too, if you want to follow us on there. We also make STEM videos for middle school and elementary school students who are interested in getting involved in STEM. These are like low barrier STEM activities that they can do at home.
Grace, thank you so much for taking time to speak with us about the Green Girls STEM Foundation. Can't wait to see what else comes out of your organization. Thanks.
Yes, thank you so much.
Great, thanks for that video. Kate, you want to go into the next headline?
Yep. So earlier this week, Team 5773 Ink and Metal from Fremont, California, released an app called InstaStory. This app allows users to scan pieces of trash with their phone, and the app will classify it as landfill, recycling, or compost. The app is live on the App Store and has already scanned 6,000 pieces of trash. I think it's really cool to see teams working to help their community, and this is one of the most unique projects I've seen from FTC teams.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear what the inspiration to make this is. This seems like something that a team might make for like an FLL project, but it's definitely a lot more sophisticated than an FLL project. Maybe it's for the innovation challenge that is new for this year for FTC and FRC teams. But a really cool thing that I saw and I thought, this is definitely something different compared to what I've seen a lot of FTC teams do. Safi, Timothy, have you seen anything similar to this from an FTC team?
I have not seen anything similar to that from the FTC team before. It's really interesting, and I think it might be really useful.
Yeah, that seems so advanced. I'm really impressed by that.
Yeah, I've seen a few teams make things like scouting apps, but nothing really like that.
I know the closest thing that I can think to that was actually Green Girls. 2 years ago, they released an entire sustainability guide in terms of environmental friendliness for FTC teams. And they talked about recycling 3D printed filament. They talked about subtractive manufacturing and stuff like that. So really cool thing that they had. But that's going to wrap up our headlines. Let's go into our next section called Let's Discuss That. Great. For those of you just tuning in on the show, our guests are Timothy and Safi from Team 5064, Aperture Science. This team has always been a powerhouse ever since I can remember being a part of the FTC program. And this year, they held the world record at one point and were ranked #1 in the FTC Top 25 February poll. To start us off, could you tell us a little bit more about your team? Where are you from? How many members? How old is your team? Safi, Timothy, either of you?
Yeah, so we are a team from Elon, North Carolina. We have 6 members this year, and I believe this is our 10th year being an FTC team.
Awesome. So you're from North Carolina. How many members do you have on your team? What age ranges are you?
We have 6 members on our team, and they go from 7th graders to juniors in high school.
Awesome. Katie, want to ask the next set of things?
Yep, so let's jump right into your ultimate goal robot. By far one of the most successful robots in the world this season. So how exactly did you come up with robot design? Could you talk about more why you went with a backside intake and how you got your shooter so accurate?
Yeah, I mean, so I think our backside intake, we mostly came from just playing around with our transfer a bit. And I think just determining that would be our fastest transfer. And getting our shooter accurate, I think, was mostly just practice, honestly. I think we do a lot of our design is just based on like running things and just seeing if they work, and then basically just like rinsing and repeating until we have a really well-functioning robot.
We definitely do a lot of testing to make sure everything holds up and works well.
And don't you guys have a 5-inch shooter wheel? That's kind of unique compared to some other teams I've seen of 4-inch or 3-inch flywheels.
We do have a 5-inch 3D printed wheel here in the front.
Why'd you choose to go with that instead of like a 4-inch Andy Mark wheel or a 4-inch Go Build a wheel?
Well, this is a wheel. This is a wheel we had, and so it was easy to just test and throw on the robot and see if it worked.
Is this from your Velocity Vortex robot?
It
Just
might
curious.
be. It's definitely been used on another robot.
Awesome. So, and then could you talk more about your backside intake? I think a lot of teams were interested in why you went with that sort of design. How did you come to that decision? What did it look like right after kickoff? Was that like your first initial thought, or did you go through some iteration to get there?
We definitely went through some iteration. We weren't exactly sure to begin with whether to do backside or same side. And I think that we ended up deciding just by seeing that most of our rings went behind the robot. we weren't like thinking about a lot of like the interesting blocking techniques that a lot of teams do right now. But yeah, it's really interesting to see a lot of the same side bots too, though. I think that some of them are going to perform really well.
Awesome. And so, Safi, could you tell us more about your intake? You've got your intake right there. Could you show us how it works? It looks like you've got some like bevel gears and some other stuff. It's able to pick up the rings real quick. So, could you talk a little bit more about that and show it on the robot?
Sure. So this part of our intake is just 2 gecko wheels we have right here attached to this axle and this bevel gear. And if you'll notice, our gecko wheels are actually cut a little bit. So there's less pressure on the rings and we don't like force them into the ground. After that, it kind of goes into like this transfer elevator structure that's up here in the middle section of the robot. And this is the part where we struggled a lot. We tried many different iterations just to get this transfer right because we just want it to go straight from the intake to the shooter. And that's made up of 2 rows of gecko wheels on 2 axles. And what that does is it turns in the opposite direction of this intake part and kind of forces the ring upwards and pressed against the wheels and some low U's up. And then that hits this little flap right here and falls down ready for the shooter.
Awesome. Katie, you want to go with the next couple of questions?
Yep. So how's your bot evolved through this season? And also, what has your timeline been like for your iterations?
Yeah, so we actually, I'm not going to say this has been our same bot because we went through a lot of different prototypes and possible designs, but we haven't like majorly redesigned yet. I think part of that was just due to the timeline of when our competitions were happening. North Carolina was the earliest state to have state competitions, I'm pretty sure, other than Australia. But we mostly just started out with some basic ideas. We built our intake and shooter first. We made sure that those worked really well. And then, like Safi mentioned, we had quite a bit of trouble figuring out how to get it from the ground to the shooter. But after we added a back row of gecko wheels, and then we just did a bunch of different iterations on like basically a ramp to make sure the rings don't go too far. And yeah, after that, we made a wobble arm, and then we just practiced a ton. We just did a bunch of driver practice and practiced with our auto. And then as we found issues, we fixed them.
Great. And so just looking at your competitions, you've definitely improved your score from your first scrimmage. I remember watching your first scrimmage. It was streamed on Discord, and like Ethan was emceeing, and so that was a lot of fun to watch. You've definitely improved your driving. Are there big mechanical changes that you all have made? You talked a little bit about your wobble arm. Is there anything else that you made since that first scrimmage?
We've mainly, I think, done a lot of just driver practice and just tuning little software things to make everything work the best it can.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and you mentioned our
Go ahead.
wobble arm. We made that quite a bit bigger. I don't know if that was from that competition. I don't think it was from that scrimmage. Basically, from that scrimmage to states, we had like 5 weeks of competitions in a row, so it was hard to make any major changes. But it was mostly driver practice and then fixing issues as they came up.
Great. And what are the roles of you on your team? So Safi and Timothy, could you tell us what you do on your team? Like what your role is?
I work primarily with hardware, and I'm also the second driver.
Great. And we may have had Timothy cut out.
I'm here. My video is really bad. I work primarily with hardware, and I'm a human player as well.
I know
Awesome.
Aperture's usually done 1 driver in the past, which made you guys had to go 2 this year.
There were a lot of different functions, and we wanted to be able to move multiple things at once. And when you have all of that on one controller and put it on one driver, that's really tough to do. So as the second driver, I don't actually do that much. Most of the functions are already on the first controller. All I do is move the wobble arm up and down and mess with the wobble gripper to release and move the wobble goal.
Great. And so you've talked about the intake. Could you show us more about your wobble roll mechanism now that you've got it out there, right in there, open for everybody to see? So what's like that green rubber on the back? What sort of design elements went into this?
So this green rubber right here is just like a grippy material that we velcroed to these two pieces. And we have one movable piece right here on a servo and these two solid pieces that don't move. And what happens is we get the wobble in between them, and this kind of closes around it and forces it back onto this green grippy thing right here.
Yeah, and the main improvement we made, I don't know if you can see this. I have some old prototypes from this that I printed. It's gotten a lot bigger. This is basically a new one. We have a few changes, but it's gotten much better, which is really good. Before we had difficulty lining up both an auto and during tele-op to grab it, but now we can kind of just get in the general vicinity and get it.
Awesome. And then your drivetrain. Your drivetrain really sticks out, especially when watching the overhead video of your robot. You went with the Go Build a Mecanum wheels, I believe, and you dyed them blue and orange. What else is there about your drivetrain? It's real fast, so what gear ratio are you using? What motors are you using? Stuff like that.
So we custom built our drive base in the off season this year with the Mecanum wheels. We currently have the wheels on belts and pulleys, so the motors can be at the very center of the robot and not blocking like the intake or anything like that. We're using 19.2:1 motors and 24:20 belts.
Awesome. So that's geared for speed.
That is geared for speed. We want to make it fast.
Gotta go fast. And then let's rotate your robot around and take a look closer at your shooter. Could you talk more about the gear ratio? You said you 3D printed a custom wheel that you had used in previous years, and according to the chat, that wheel was from Rescue first, and then it was also used in Velocity Vortex. Could you tell us more about the other elements in your shooter?
Well,
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Okay. So we have the 3D printed custom wheel with grippy thread. Again, that is from Rescue. We just have a bunch of old parts laying around, which is really great since they're so old. But we have a 3D printed wall. I don't know. Well, you can see that. It's a little J shape, which extends the contact time between the ring and the wheel. And then we also have basically a trigger on a super speed servo to push the rings into the shooter pretty fast. And the main issue we've had with that is just like the rings have to fall. But other than that, that's worked really well. So we've had a little bit of going too fast, but other than that, it's worked really well.
Awesome. And do you have any angle adjustment? I see like this white strip. Are those just LEDs, or is that like a servo?
We do not have any angle adjustment, and if you're talking about these ones, these are LEDs.
Awesome. And what are those useful for?
That's mainly used just so we can have a light when we're using our camera to look at the rings during autonomous.
I see that your camera for autonomous is mounted on a servo. What was the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, so I don't think, other than adjusting the angle just to see at the beginning, we don't actually use that much. But we figured that'd be really useful for in-person competitions, where you could be lining up on either of the lines or on either side of the field. So that way we can just have one servo to see the rings. I mean, one camera.
Awesome. Any other cool sensors that you have on your robot? I mean, you have a pretty reliable autonomous. I've watched most of your matches, and you usually hit it. So anything else you use to help line up? I mean, besides your camera?
I think that's mainly it.
I mean, we have Odometry. Obviously, that's not new in FTC, but that's.
Do you want to show us your Odometry modules if you could? Because I know like a lot of people like to flex their Odometry modules and show them off. So might be cool to see your design. So what encoders are you using? How are they spring loaded? Could you show those? Talk a little bit more about them.
Yeah, so we're using web encoders. We're just bringing them with rubber bands, which can make the springing a little bit inconsistent, but it also makes it a lot easier to spring. Yeah, We CNC'd 2 plates and used standoffs to connect them.
So they're custom designed Odometry pods, not any of the open source options that are out there?
Yeah, we wanted to make it specifically for our robot, and I don't know, you probably cannot see this. We have we call them duck beaks, which are custom to our robot, which basically hit a standoff behind us, which are really useful to have a physical stop on the odometry.
Awesome. Really, really cool. And we can see that a little bit more in the control video that Tyler has shown in the past. We have a question from the chat. I think this may be your coach or somebody related to your team. BZEEB asks Safi, what's up with the zip-tied metal blocks?
The zip-tied metal blocks, which you can see right here, and there's also one underneath back here by the shooter. Those are weights we use to weigh down these two points of the robot, the diagonals. We were having some issues with our drive being kind of off, and like it was strafing weird to one side, and we thought it was a weight issue because we have weight over here with this section and over here. So we were trying to balance it out by putting weights on these 2 sides of the robot.
Awesome. And did that work?
Mainly, yes, it drove much better after we put the weights on.
And how heavy is your robot just overall? Do you know, have you measured it?
I do not know how heavy our robot is.
Yeah, we don't know.
No weight limit this year. You didn't have
no
to pay
weight
attention to
limit,
it as
and
much.
it goes fast enough, so.
Yeah, why did they have a weight limit last year? I don't get it. Like, sure, I get it for a hanging game in Rover Ruckus where that rover was going to fall apart when I put anything more than the 42 pounds per robot. But last year, I don't get it. This year, yeah.
Maybe
it's funny
something
how
like the
Rescue
Skybridge.
didn't have a weight limit.
Yeah, it might be the Skybridge, I don't know.
You also had basically a height limit of 10 inches at the Sky Bridge.
Yeah, it was 14 inches, I think.
Oh,
we were
yeah.
able to get the robot down to. All right. And I wanted to ask you about COVID because COVID's really affected a lot of teams. Your team still looks like it's just as successful as ever. How has your team adapted with COVID? How have you been meeting? How are you getting work done?
Yeah, so it's been weird, obviously. We haven't actually met in person, other than competitions where we had like 3 people, I think, 2 of them in the same family. And like I said, we have a few family members, Baron in the chat, and then also Safi and Pippa, who's our driver, are all siblings, which is really good, because they can be together, so they can actually build the robot, which a lot of us can't do. So yeah, like we said, we're a 6-person team. About half the team hasn't actually seen the robot yet. So we've mostly just done it by having, we've had like full team meetings twice a week, but then we just like basically break into our small subgroups and work on our own stuff and then bring up any problems we have to the team to see if anyone has an idea for a solution. Yeah, we did not, I mean, let's be honest, at parts of this year it didn't feel like we were going to be as good as we have in past years, but I think we were able to kind of pull everything together and ended up with a really good robot.
And so you said you did a lot of people haven't seen the robot. Do you use CAD or some other tool to help design it virtually?
Yeah, we do some CAD. Some CAD and then some just prototyping and then iterating physically. In the past years, we haven't done much CAD at all, but this year we CAD'd quite a few of our mechanisms. And then we were also able to work on code remotely through GitHub and stuff, which is really good. And then obviously for competitions, we had some practice with human player, which was me. That was my first time seeing the robot. And we just did a ton of driver practice and quite a bit of human player practice to get it really reliable.
Another question we had from the chat was from Untraditional Brownie, and they asked, what wheels do you use for your odometry?
I believe those are Robotics 38 millimeters. It's been a long time since we got those. It's been like a year. I don't remember completely, to be honest, but I believe it's a Robotics 38 millimeters. I know that they're
A little
38
bit larger than 38, but maybe they are.
Yeah, maybe 40. I don't know. It's been a while. Wait,
Awesome.
no, sorry. They're 60 millimeters. Sorry. It's been a long time since we did that. I remember the diameter. I don't remember exactly what company.
Great. So I just wanted to ask you more about your season. North Carolina States was this past weekend, right? You competed there. How was your competition there? Do you know anything about World's advancements? You already said that you're going to talk about going to MTI. Do you have any other competitions coming up, if not for Worlds?
Yeah, the North Carolina States, it was interesting. It's always so competitive each year. This year, I think, was a huge step up to the region as a whole. I was really happy to see a lot of the other teams, either that we're just like friends with or just have noticed throughout the past years, like 8300 and 16461 particularly come to mind. They were able to build two of the best robots in the world, and I'd say not many people outside of North Carolina like knew about them last year. So it was really great to see them just like go do so well. We aren't sure on advancement right now. We're in this kind of limbo state where it's possible that, North Carolina loses slots. It's possible that we actually gain slots due to some combination of no FRC at Worlds, or just having online Worlds or something weird like that. We aren't really sure. Obviously, no one knows what's going to happen with Worlds. We have no idea how it's going to be structured or anything like that. We'd obviously love to go to Worlds if we could. Right now, it looks like we probably won't, but nothing is really set in stone. We aren't really sure about any further competitions. We're all kind of worn out from having like 5 straight weeks of competitions, so we were just taking like a little break after states. But we definitely consider either hosting some more of those virtual scrimmages like we talked about with the wider audience sometime maybe, or doing MTI or something like that.
Awesome. All right, that's going to wrap up the questions we have. Before we switch over to Kahoot, is there anything that you want to plug? Where can teams contact you if they have more questions?
I'd say you can. I think our Instagram is FTC5064. You can also try and find us on the FTC Discord. Either way, we're totally open to questions if you guys have any.
Great. That's going to wrap up Let's Discuss That. Thank you to 5064 for joining the show for this. We're now going to switch over to Kahoot. I created this Kahoot. Kate, Safi, Timothy have not seen it. Tyler's going to put up the join code, so go ahead and join the Kahoot, and you can be eligible to win a $20 gift card to the supplier of your choice. We're really trying to help suppliers. COVID's really hard on them, so we want to make sure that we're giving back to our suppliers and helping them sustain. So a $20 gift card to the supplier of your choice is up for grabs if you win Kahoot. Ben Kant asks, how did you get your rev slide so fast?
Just a lot of practice, We just, rev slides are a really important part of this year's game. We took a lot of inspiration from Team 254 gluten free, so we just were able to learn a lot.
We'll let the memes be memes. Make sure to join Kahoot. 1869413 is the code. Timothy, Safi, you're welcome to join if you have a phone. Kate, you're also welcome to join if you have a phone. That way the audience can play against you.
You can also do it on desktop.
You can also do it on desktop as well.
One thing, just a reminder to everybody before we start, make sure you refresh your stream because if you lost packets or anything like that, you might be a little bit behind where we are. So refresh the stream so you are caught up to low latency mode so you can answer the questions as quickly as possible. So we'll start in just a moment. Before we do, one last thing, just to mention, the Fun Future Educator Scholarship is open through the end of this month. We are starting to get a lot of applications, but doesn't mean that you cannot potentially apply, or if you or have a friend that is in first that is looking to become an educator or is in college already, go ahead and apply for that. We have 2 scholarships, each around about $1,000 a piece right now. So appreciate that. And go ahead and apply for that at firstupdatesnow.com /FES21. It's also in our Discord as well.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. Here's the first question. What is the current world record for in-person matches? And these are 4v4 matches, not anything else. Official 2v2 matches. What is the current world record for official 2v2 matches? And it looks like a lot of people said 380. 380 is the score that Wizards.exe and Extreme Voltage set, but 368 is the official current world record for in-person 2v2 matches set in Russia this past weekend. All right, let's go on to the next one. Looks like Safi and Alex at the top. Safi, how did you know that one?
I actually cannot see the answer, so I just randomly guessed.
Sounds good. All right, how many MTI competitions have occurred? Is it 1, 2, 3, or 4? Can they not hear the... All right, and it looks like most people got that right. It has been 4. First MTI was in Velocity Vortex. I competed there. And then they had Relic Recovery, Rover Ruckus, and then last year Skystone, which was a virtual MTI, but it was an MTI nonetheless. Looks like... Oh no, Safi didn't get this one right with her random selection. Alex SZ is in the top, followed by Kate. Let's move on to the next question. Which FTC game featured a zipline? Is it Velocity Vortex, Rescue, Cascade Effect, or Stronghold? And it is Rescue. I don't know who put Stronghold. Somebody... Was that you, Safi? That pressed
I
green?
got this one right.
Oh, you did? Okay, then somebody was just trolling saying Stronghold. I threw that in there just for memes. Looks like Alex is staying at the top. 500-point lead. Could be lost in one round, but we will have to see. Let's move on to the next question. What was the last game to use an IR beacon? Is it Cascade Effect, Rescue, Block Party, or Hotshot? And it is Cascade Effect. Cascade Effect, as soon as they phased out the old NXT system, they were like, we're going to get rid of the IR beacons because they aren't that reliable. And so in Rescue, they introduced the beacon SAD randomization. That's going to put Kate up in the lead. Kate cannot win. So it will go to second place, like a $20 gift card. But there is a very slim margin between first and fifth place. So we will see how the next rankings come in. Let's go on to the last question. What was the first game to feature a human player? Is it Relic Recovery, Rover Ruckus, Skystone, or Ultimate Goal? And the correct answer was Skystone. Last year was the first year to have a human player for FTC. So let's go on and see who won. In third place, we have Hrithik with 3,137. Second place, Alex. And did Kate get first? Kate got first. Rick in the chat.
Thanks for watching. If you want more fun content, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. Keep the conversation going and provide your input to our content. Watch our live shows at twitch.tv/firstupdatesnow. Join our Discord at discord.gg/firstupdatesnow and check out Fun FTC on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and First Updates Now on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. You can also directly support Fun by joining Fun Nation. Click the join button, and just for a few bucks a month, you'll unlock special perks and directly support us so we can keep making great content.